When you're down to your last $10 and still need to eat, there's just one place you go: Dollar Tree. I had no idea that I would find myself in Harper's Junction of all places. The town seems to have given up a long time ago. Payday lenders, booze stores, and the incessant hum of despair are all that remain after the factory jobs dried up and the schools were underfunded. After my ex-fiancée depleted our assets and left me with nothing except an old futon and a stack of medical school textbooks I couldn't even sell, I moved here 3 months ago because it was the only place I could afford, not because I wanted to. I'm 24-year-old Maya Rivera, and I'm in survival mode. Above a laundromat that smells like bleach and soiled socks, I rent a little studio. I work night shifts at Lou's Diner, where I scrub ketchup crust off sticky booths, grin at truckers, and sleep next to my kitchenette. I also subsist off of instant ramen and worry. Rent, utilities, and interest on school loans that I am unable to pay off take up every dime. Comfort is not an option. So yes, I buy at Dollar Tree because even if the store makes you uneasy, you clutch to anything familiar and inexpensive when your life is in a tight spot. By 5 o'clock on that November Tuesday, it was already dark. To keep myself from going crazy, I only needed dish soap, a cheap phone charger, and a salty snack. It would be a quick in and out, I told myself. Not a huge deal. However, I could tell something wasn't right as soon as I pulled into the parking lot. Tall, too slender, and pallid as if he hadn't seen the sun in weeks, he stood close to the door. He paced as though he was waiting for someone or something, wearing a gray hoodie that was smeared with dirt. He was just another homeless man, I assured myself, but I already knew better in my heart. I parked 2 spots from the door. I wanted to avoid being overly dramatic. I simply instructed myself to avoid eye contact, walk quickly, and keep my head down. He turned his head and stared at me as soon as I stepped outside. No interest, no blinking, simply that blank, prolonged gaze that makes your skin felt too tight by 2 sizes. The Dollar Tree was completely silent inside. The overhead lights hummed with that sickly fluorescent buzz, flickering as they always did. The scent of outdated confectionery and decaying plastic filled the aisles. That was how it always smelled. However, it felt worse today for some reason. I quickly headed for the cleaning supplies after grabbing a green plastic basket. Then I caught sight of him. Same dead eyes, same hoodie. He pretended to be looking at dish rags while he stood at the end of the aisle. He had nothing in his hands. I felt sick to my stomach. I went to the following aisle. Tech, garbage, and chargers. Once more he was merely standing. Although his body leaned slightly in my direction, his eyes met mine. My face. I continued to walk quickly, my hands sweating, my heart thumping in my ears. Was I making this up? Was I merely being suspicious? My mind has already been tampered with by this town. Nighttime sirens, men yelling outside my window, and the incessant clatter of shattered objects. He was there at every turn, even if I was losing it. I failed to do the task for which I had come. I think I had 3 items in my basket: a crumpled package of sour cream chips, a charger, and soap. I heard it behind me as I was making my way to the register. He was walking more quickly now, nearer. I went cold. I could smell his breath as he leaned in close. Something chemical and sharp. Do you need assistance carrying those? He rasping. His fingers fluttered like they wanted to grasp, to grab, to cling. I ran after dropping the basket. I refrained from screaming. I simply ran. The chilly night air hit me in the face as the automatic doors flew wide. I ran across the parking lot to my car and fumbled with my keys as if they weren't mine. I heard it behind me. There was a loud crash, glass breaking, and a large object dropping. I made only one head turn. A display by the register had been knocked over by him. Glass mason jars smashed across the floor, glinting like broken fangs in the wavering light. I wasn't being pursued by him. No more, he didn't run though. He simply remained there, panting heavily, looking at me as if I were an unfinished jigsaw. After locking the doors and getting inside the car, I drove recklessly. I could hardly hold the wheel because my hands were shaking so much. I didn't go home right away. For an hour, I parked outside the diner and watched every passing automobile with my heart pounding. I eventually called the cops. They saw him 2 blocks distant, half twitching, half limping, with dime-sized pupils and a folding knife in his pocket. The man had a record, according to the police officer who collected my statement. Several accusations of pestering and stalking women in bargain shops. He told me you were lucky. Fortunate? I felt not fortunate. My groceries were not delivered. My charger was not delivered. My phone died that night and I was too afraid to go anyplace else, so I ate dry cereal in the dark. I sat in my small apartment, the heater hissing as if I were the object of its ire. What if I hadn't run fast enough? I kept asking myself, what if my keys fell or the door sensor malfunctioned? The most important question is, what will happen the next time I can't afford to be scared? People believe that hunger, debt, and mounting bills are the worst aspects of being broke. But the fact, it's how risk becomes every day, how to begin to estimate the danger of everything. Taking the bus, going grocery shopping, or walking home. You've witnessed what happens when you let your guard down. Not because you're paranoid. Since that evening, I have not returned to Dollar Tree. Cannot afford to, nor emotionally, nor intellectually. Even so, it's the only location where you can still get deodorant and dinner for $3. These days, I shop at the expensive corner bodega where the cashier treats you like a menace. I have pepper spray on hand. Even though I'm alone up here, I started locking the door to my bedroom inside my apartment. In Lou's diner, I explained the situation to another waitress. Carla is older and a little rough. That's just Harper's Junction for you, she remarked, laughing. She was already on to the next client, but I still wanted to shake her and ask why that was acceptable. Like everyone else, including the police, the city eats up females like me in this town. Cracked and careful, it constantly looks over our shoulders as it spits us out, and nobody even notices when we vanish if we do. I began sleeping beneath my bed with a hammer. I don't tell my mom anything like this anymore because she's back in Arizona and would freak out if she found out. She believes that I'm doing well. I occasionally spot movement outside the window of my apartment, a figure in the alley behind, or a shadow sliding by the laundry sign. The structure. It's probably nothing most of the time, but I know what I saw that one time. A person wearing a hoodie was standing motionless under the streetlight, staring up at my window without moving. My heart was doing cartwheels, my breath was shallow, and I froze. The police weren't called by me. I remained motionless. I remained concealed behind the curtain, hoping he wouldn't notice me. I never knew if he was the one. And that's what nobody tells you. It doesn't seem like a win to survive. Waiting for the next attack is how it feels, as if you were living in a period of calm between storms. Nothing has changed in the world. It's just time to bite. The image of that man at the Dollar Tree always brings to mind his twitching hands, which were neither large nor powerful, as if something was yelling to come out of him. And I consider how cheap my safety was and how close he came. $3.79. In a basket made of plastic that I never paid for. I live like a hunted animal now. I observe every shadow. Since the store in Harper's Junction may sell anything for $1, but the true cost is your peace of mind. I never shop alone and I save every receipt of mind, and you lose it once it's gone. It's gone. Back. Although it's said that money cannot buy happiness, I can assure you that it can purchase peace of mind. It's been a while since I've experienced tranquility. My name is Danny Lopez. I'm 22 years old and I haven't had a significant vacation since I was 16. My father departed 6 months ago. He claimed to be going out one evening to obtain anti-rees for the automobile, but he never returned. He left behind a family that couldn't afford to disintegrate, a mountain of bills and an empty checking account. My mother loads boxes onto trucks till dawn as part of her third shift job at a warehouse in New Vienna. She has enough pride to act as though her 2 herniated discs don't ache. I work 2 jobs and attend community college 3 days a week, stocking shelves at a nearby pharmacy most evenings while working as a waitress during the day. However, despite everything, there are instances when the refrigerator is empty by Wednesday and I have to tell my young, whatever we can prepare with rice and peanut butter for supper, Sister Sophia. Sophia, who is 13, is more intelligent than she admits. Too intelligent to fall for my lie that everything is all right. Since Dad left, she has been more reserved. I know she considers it, but she no longer asks where he went. Both of us do. We may now only purchase necessities rather than wants. I therefore agreed when Sophia requested if we may pick up decorations at the Dollar Tree prior to Halloween. It was because I hadn't seen her grin in weeks, not because we were wealthy. I convinced myself that we could spare $5 of the $20 we had left before payday. Perhaps it would lessen the sense that our gloomy abode is a waiting room for terrible news. That Sunday afternoon, she and I went alone. The sun was already lowering. Millfield has a wind that slashes like resentment in October. The town, it makes you cringe to feel abandoned. Like an elderly guy clearing his throat, our beat-up Honda shook when we stopped in front of the Dollar Tree. As soon as we pulled in, I should have trusted the gut feeling. The lot contained 3 vehicles, Cart corral, two by the store, one crooked by the eye. The white minivan had dark tinted windows and a low rumbling engine. I saw it immediately. Perhaps instinct. You learn how to recognize strange vibes before they become serious issues by working two jobs. We entered, picked up a green basket, and made our unhurried circuit of the aisles. Sophia selected a toy skeleton which she called Gerald, and 2 bags of faux cobwebs. We chuckled at how foolish he appeared with his eyes painted incorrectly, as if he had been constructed in a hurry. It had been months since I'd heard her laugh like that. I became aware that my heart had been thumping more quickly than it should have when we were nearly finished. I believed it was the caffeine crash from a $1 coffee at the petrol station, or work-related stress. But then I caught a glimpse of it through the front glass window. Still operating and still tilted is that same white van. Sophia was unaware. She was undoubtedly hoping I would say yes as she selected Halloween sweets from the bargain bin. Yes, I did. For her school journal, I even included a $1 notepad. The pages of her previous one were torn. The clerk at the register scanned every item with the dead-eyed professionalism of someone who detested their work, without even looking at us. She remained silent. With our plastic bags and our phony smiles, we ventured out into the wind. I noticed them at that point. Now there are 2 males in the van. Passengers and drivers were staring at us and straight ahead, as if we were already theirs. It started in my stomach, that icy touch of fear. I took Sophia by the wrist and said, "Come on." We didn't run yet, but we walked quickly. However, I already had my keys. Behind us I heard a door click. I didn't turn around. As one of them said, "Hey there," he spoke with a low, syrupy, and incorrect voice. It only required that. Sophia was thrown into a run by me. As we ran, our plastic bags ripped. The pavement was covered in fake cobwebs. The plastic skull of Gerald shattered and bounced. Sophia let out a piercing, terrified cry, not a loud one. With one hand, I pushed her into the passenger seat while using the other to open the car. I only remember that terrible, adrenaline-fueled whirl of motion. I don't even remember moving. I didn't realize the passenger was so close. Right as I closed the door, I noticed his shadow extending across the pavement. In the hopes that anyone would hear, I locked it and tapped the horn with my elbow. Then there was a crash. When a mason jar struck the windshield, it burst into gooey red soda. With her hands over her head, Sophia shouted. I felt like I had been smacked around. There was a long crack that ran straight down the center of the spider-wetted glass. Tires squealing, I slammed the car in reverse and backed out crookedly. The men did nothing except observe. And the driver had stepped out. Like a wall in a hoodie, he was towering and stocky. They didn't flee. They didn't shout. As if we had spoiled their plans, they simply watched us drive off. Still trembling, I drove directly to the police station. Sophia stared at the candy on her lap as if it had betrayed her, and she sat quietly the entire time. We submitted a report. With a bored expression, as if I were wasting his time, the officer took down my story. Could have just been teenagers playing around, he stated. Do you believe that teenagers wait for girls in vans while carrying around jars of soda? I broke. He gave a shrug. The town of Millfield is peculiar. They didn't bother to conduct surveillance at all, claimed that the cameras in the parking lot were most likely broken once more. The soda had hardened and become sticky on the windshield by the following morning. I tried using a spatula to scrape it off. Every day the crack became a little wider. We had no money to fix it, after claiming that I was exaggerating and that it was most likely some strange practical joke. Mom discovered glass fragments lodged in the passenger seat. She simply turned away and left for work early without saying anything further. Sophia didn't request a Halloween excursion, refused to hang the decorations at all. Before I tossed Gerald away, he sat on the counter for a week. I felt sick to my stomach because of his stupid fractured skull. I began observing everyone in the gas station, including the automobiles, parking spaces, and people walking behind us. I initially believed I was being paranoid. Then I understood that it was irrelevant. Therapy was more expensive than paranoia. Even though the Dollar Tree was the only store we could afford to shop at, we stopped coming there. I began making purchases at gas stations. Expensive, crowded, but well lit and near home. Sophia is not a sleeper. Not using the television at the moment. I just listen to her since I can't afford a therapy. She usually doesn't. Although we just adjusted, I wish I could claim that things improved and that we recovered. The worry took up residence between the dish rack and the microwave. It settled into a comfortable position. In a place like Millfield, Bad things tend to happen in silence. Individuals gradually vanish. From their homes, then from school, and finally from memory. Everyone acts as though they are unaware. Nobody discusses the youngster who was discovered in the river without his shoes, or the girl who vanished from the Save-A-Lot parking lot last year. The white vans that parked outside the primary school for an extended period of time go unnoticed. The folks in the van that day weren't from out of town, I believe. They lived there. They stood as if they knew no one would stop them, and you could tell. What's worse is that they were most likely correct. The same idea is whispered by every broken sidewalk and shuttered store in Millfield. You're alone. I can still see the van in my mind even though it never returned. Every time I see a crooked car or drive by a parking lot, I dream about the mason jar sometimes. It made a warning-like sound. However, we remain here. Sophia continues to attend classes. I continue to work at my employment. The Honda continues to rattle. Our lives are small, quiet, and cautious. We don't look up. And I think of that voice whenever someone accuses us of being paranoid. Hi there, just hunger, no spirit, no grin. Some people experience ghost hauntings. We're plagued by actuality. Sometimes when I wake up, I forget how terrible things actually are. Then I recall my mother's coughing voice when she tries to say she's okay. The rust spot on the ceiling above my bed, and the hum of the mechanic's garage downstairs. At Cedar Falls Hospice, I'm Nina Vasquez, a 26-year-old nursing assistant. Rent is late, and Mom's COPD medications cost more than I earn in a week, so I pull doubles practically every day. She lives in a mobile house that trembles when vehicles pass by in the next town over. Go ahead. Additionally, there are instances when I pretend to have eaten when I haven't, because the sickness wouldn't kill her as quickly if she knew that I skipped meals to pay for her inhalers. Lena, my younger sister, is the sole positive aspect of my existence. Tomorrow is her 16th birthday, sardonic, intelligent, and too nice for this environment. I made a self-promise to at least get her a card even though I haven't been able to give her a genuine gift in years. Something glitzy and stupid she knows I didn't forget because she can roll her eyes at it. I eventually clocked out on Thursday at 11:47 p.m. The smell of bleach and hand sanitizer persisted in my scrub. Breakfast was the last meal I had eaten. Even though my feet hurt, I had 13 more minutes to go to the Dollar Tree on Main. Most of the lot was deserted. Behind the liquor store, there's only a flickering streetlight, a closed payday lending business, and some inebriated shouting. Normal Cedar Falls. I had no choice but to park beneath the one damaged light. When I stepped in, the cashier didn't even raise her head. She continued to browse through her phone behind the counter, as if she didn't give a damn if the establishment burned down. I saw him at that point. Near the greeting cards, a man wearing a dark sweatshirt was standing motionless. He wasn't going shopping, he waited. I made an effort to convince myself that I was simply being jittery. My mind was cloudy after working a 16-hour shift and skipping 2 meals. It was nerves, that's all. My intuition, however, didn't think so. He wasn't looking around. He wasn't feigning to glance at the thinking of you area or reading cards. He simply stood there as though he had deliberately placed himself there, and felt more at home in that aisle than I did. Eyes down, my heart thumping louder with each step I hurried along. I came up a cheap card that read, "Happy Birthday, Superstar," in a cartoon script with glitter. It's ridiculous, but Lena would love it. I also picked up a pack of gum. I felt more natural after that, like if I wasn't there merely to get through the night. I looked back. He was still standing. When I got to the counter, the teenage cashier looked up at last. Without saying anything, she scanned the card while chewing gum with her mouth open and returning her attention to her phone as soon as she had bagged it. The parking lot outside seemed larger than it had been, and darker. The only other vehicle parked at the edge close to the alley was a damaged pickup with tinted windows. Only a few steps away, directly beneath the broken bulb, stood my tiny Civic. I walked more quickly. I had already grasped my keys. I stopped as I got to the car. It didn't feel quite right. I was the first to notice the fragrance. Sweat, stale smoke, and a faint metallic smell like rust or blood. Then I noticed it. The rear seat's form. The hooded figure was there, huddled low in the darkness, his lips split, his face pallid. Slowly, he raised his gaze. "Evening," he said. I let the bag fall. I didn't consider it. I simply moved, punched the throttle, inserted the key into the ignition, and watched as my automobile sprang forward, its tires screeching on the fractured pavement. He lunged at me after yelling something guttural. I felt his breath near my ear as I grabbed the headrest. I made a sharp swerve. I was quickly off the pavement as the curb arrived. As if it were a black hole, the ditch rose. The vehicle bucked. Boom, followed by metal scream. I was blinded white as the airbag exploded in my face. My ears ringing. Blood filled my mouth, therefore I believe I bit my tongue. Everything came to a halt. I believed I was dead for a moment. He wasn't there when I opened my eyes. With my legs trembling so much that I could not stand, I fumbled with the seatbelt. My shoe came off in the crash, so I stumbled out barefoot as the door cracked open. I ran without turning around. Far away, a porch light blinked. Behind a slanting chain-link fence is a small dwelling. It did, so I ran for it as if my life depended on it. Too afraid to shout, I banged on the door. I had lost my voice. My only option was to repeatedly strike the wood until a robed woman split it open. My face was visible to her. She let me in despite the blood and the fear. The police arrived, took my report, and told me I was fortunate. Good fortune. He was discovered hiding in that pickup half a mile distant. Zip ties, duct tape, and a knife in the glove box. The complete 6-piece beginning kit. He had already been arrested. The same incident happened to 2 additional women. Backseat concealment, stalking. Both barely made it out alive. He is still permitted to walk the streets. As if it weren't his concern, the cop shrugged. He said it was meant to cheer me up, but he's not leaving this time. However, I didn't feel any better. I was in pieces. My vehicle was totaled. The claim was rejected by insurance. Claimed that whatever that meant, I had escaped a non-driving threat. I now walk to work. It takes 40 minutes, rain or not. In the collision, the birthday card was smashed. I told Lena a lie. I told her I had forgotten. It was all right, she said. However, I could see it in her face. I couldn't get rid of that tiny glimmer of hurt. Even after weeks, I still wake up in the middle of the night, my heart pounding and my breath coming in sharp gasps, as if I were again in that parking lot. I think I smell him sometimes. Metal, smoke, sweat, and a lock in my chest. I examine the window, the closet, and the locks. These days, I sleep with a hammer next to my bed. It wouldn't make a difference. At work, I observe people whispering and observing me. What had caused her to arrive at Dollar Tree so late? As though poverty were a moral failing. As if you are complicit because you are desperate. This existence is not what I asked for. All I'm trying to do is survive in a town that is collapsing from the inside out. All I can do is try to keep my family together while everything else breaks down. And now I get queasy whenever I see a Dollar Tree sign. For that store is more than just a store. I was no longer invisible there. I became a prey there, and that permanently alters you. When your ideal night out consists of a 2 a.m. dash to Dollar Tree, you know you've reached your lowest point. Black Pine was inexpensive, so I moved there. That's all. If you didn't mind the black mold in the bathroom and the ceiling fan that seemed like it was about to break off and murder you while you slept, the rent was $400 a month. I didn't. Not at all. I used to work as a staff writer for a legitimate publication with lines and print. I now work as a freelancer for blogs that pay $10 per piece or exposure. I ghostwrite copy for businesses I can't afford to buy from and write opinion pieces for anonymous websites. In communities like these where manufacturing forgot and medicines remembered, I was working on a piece on the opioid epidemic. However, each time I conducted an interview, they gave me the look that I knew I wasn't welcome. This is not your home. You're just visiting until the story's over, one person added. He was not mistaken. I couldn't sleep tonight. Before midnight, my laptop had frozen 3 times. The radiator hissed as if it were upset with me for still being alive. And my editor threw back my most recent manuscript with more red than black. I put on my coat, went outside into the icy cold, and I wanted pens, notebooks, and anything to make me feel like a writer again. So I went down to the Dollar Tree. There was that terrible fluorescent hum in the store. As if the place had been plundered in slow motion, every aisle was only partially supplied. The cashier was a teenage girl chewing a huge pink wad of gum while browsing through her phone. She didn't even raise her head. I saw him at that point. The man in the seasonal aisle stood motionless, causing my arms to stand on end. The shelves were covered in dusty Valentine's Day trinkets, including pink animals, mugs with broken hearts, and inexpensive tinsel. He was observing, not shopping, and not looking at the decorations. At me. I'm at a loss for words when it comes to him. He stood there as if he was trying to commit my face to memory without moving or blinking. I pretended not to see, walked past him with my head down, and picked up the cheapest coffee I could find along with a 5-pack of cheap pens. It wasn't simply the cold that was making my hands shake. I reached the counter and made a cash payment. The girl simply bagged it and returned to her phone without saying anything. I discovered I was the only person in the parking lot when I pulled in. Just me, no streetlights, no traffic. The long stretch of worn asphalt that stretches into the shadows, and the blinking, broken neon Dollar Tree sign above. Then I noticed that there was a black notepad on my passenger seat. I examined my pockets and froze. When I got inside my car, it was locked. Never do I leave it open. Black pine, no. I took a look around. Nothing. There was only that horrible yellow light and silence, no movement, no footfall. With clammy hands and a pounding heart, I climbed into the car. The notepad wasn't mine. I opened it. The first page had my name on it, followed by dozens of remarks. Intense, hurried penmanship. Not the town. It's about me, not my writing. Eli puffs on half a cigarette before extinguishing it. Eli looks for texts on his phone that he knows won't arrive. At night, when he believes no one can hear, Eli talks to himself. My throat tightened. I turned to the final page. The date is today. Tonight, Eli will visit Dollar Tree. When he's stuck, he always does. I felt sick to my stomach. Then the window was knocked on. I pivoted. He was the one. His smile was large, slow, and incorrect. You left out the best parts, he added after tapping the glass once. I can't recall opening the door. Thinking is not something I recall. The vehicle refused to start. I flipped the key. Click, click, nothing. He opened the door as though it were his own. I was first struck by the scent of mothballs, sweat, and rubbing alcohol. He climbed into the passenger seat with his eyes on mine, his coat brushing across my arm. Nice prose, he commanded, but your pacing needs work. He reached into his coat with his hand. He produced a knife. A box cutter, not large or ostentatious, rusted. His voice was low. You're not writing the story anymore, he said. I am. I made a move at that point. I hurled the notepad in his direction, scurried out of the driver's side, and dashed inside the store across the parking lot. The girl was still using her phone at the counter. With my heart wanting to leap out of my chest, I gasped as I rushed through the doors. She didn't flinch. I yelled for her to dial 911. There's no phone here, she remarked, looking up and blinking once. I turned around. The man was observing me from the glass doors. He simply grinned, held out the notebook, and left without entering. The following day, I submitted a report. It didn't really matter. A bored police officer in his mid-40s wrote something on a form and said, You're the author, correct? The opioid issue. I gave a nod. Yeah, I heard. Some folks don't like being written about. That man tried to kill me, I said. The officer shrugged. Maybe don't hang out in parking lots after midnight. That was it. No arrests, no follow-up, and no cameras to inspect. According to the cashier, she saw nothing. I discovered another black journal the following evening. I had this one in my mailbox. More details, same handwriting. Things I never uttered aloud. When his mother calls, Eli tells her a falsehood. Twice a week, Eli looks up his ex on Google. Eli ponders the experience of ceasing to exist. I felt cold after reading the last line. Eli holds a knife that is never sharp enough while he sleeps on his side. They were taped to the inside of my bathroom mirror and kept getting under my pillow. He reminded me every time I felt like I had lost him. The story was now being told by him. The hospice tale was lost on me. I had gone too dark, according to my editor. Claimed that I needed a break. She was saying that she no longer trusted me. Rent is past due. Finally, my laptop died. I now write by hand. Where else do I find spiral notebooks? Dollar Tree. Even though I no longer go there at night, I know he's there, writing and observing. Each time I take a seat to work, perhaps he was correct, and I wonder if the words are mine or his. I might not be the author. Perhaps he's just writing me toward the end because I'm the character, because I'm the character. You don't go into life intending to conduct therapy sessions beside a pile of stale Halloween sweets and cheap Easter baskets. However, here I am. Dr. Silas Graves, a former licensed psychiatrist who now only charges $20 per hour and provides a bottle of generic acetaminophen as a life coach. In a real building, I once had an office on the 3rd floor. Degrees hung on the wall, a leather couch, and a fern in the corner. Before they revoked my license for over-medicating my customers, the VA had already flagged my prescriptions. The majority of the medicines were actually for me. PTSD from my Afghanistan experience. I needed to be numb in order to sleep. I now work out of the Dollar Tree's backstock room in Ravenswood, a town so emptied out that it feels like the ghost has also fled. Rick, the manager, lets me rent the area beneath the table, saying, I can use it after close as long as I clean up and pay cash. My workspace consists of a card table and a plastic folding chair surrounded by broken mop handles and boxes of melted chocolate Santas. In the corner is a rust-leaking mop bucket and a security camera that hasn't worked since last summer. However, some people continue to show there, including the paranoid, the desperate, and those who have nowhere else to go. They share secrets they can't afford to share with anyone else while sitting in the buzzing light. Among them was Jeremiah Cole. Appeared every Thursday, twitching their eyes and speaking quietly as if someone were listening. He discussed them, watchers in the power wires, voices in the walls. Up until that night when the rain struck the metal roof like gunfire, I listened, made notes, and cashed his bills. And with a kind of anger I had never seen before, Jeremiah entered, drenched, mute, and shaking. I believed I was assisting him. I believed that he needed me. But I found out who was actually being observed that night in the Dollar Tree storage area. It sounded like the storm outside wanted to come in. The wind howled through the crevices surrounding the entrance and rocked the back shutters. I sipped stale coffee from a styrofoam cup while seated at the table. Rick left the bitter stuff in the break room a few weeks ago. I rationed the few pills I had left by taking only half of them out of my pocket. Jeremiah arrived late. He never arrived late. When the door creaked open and he entered, I was thinking about packing up. He was soaking through, shivering, and his eyes darted about as if the shadows were speaking. He looked like hell. Instead of sitting immediately, he stood with his shoulders heaving beside the door. You all right? With a firm voice, I asked. Even when I'm not, I've learned to sound composed. He didn't respond. Rather, his gaze shifted to the corner where the broken security camera used to blink. He said, They told me you were one of them. Who was it? He blinked quickly. Behind the cables, that is. When I switch off the lights, I can hear him. When he did sit, his stance was rigid like a spring coil. In his lap, his hands continued to twitch. I attempted rerouting. Remember how we discussed the distinction between perception and reality, Jeremiah? That what you think isn't always true. His piercing, angry gaze flitted to mine. Don't speak to me in that manner. They speak that way. They seem to be attempting to tuck something behind your eyes, gradually and gentle. I realized then that his hands weren't only twitching. They were holding something. Palms up, I gently leaned forward. You're safe here, Jeremiah. This location is still secure. He gave a brief, sour laugh. Such a thing does not exist. He took it out of his coat. Paint spattered and discolored a box cutter. He muttered, You've been lying to me, and then he stood. Just before violence breaks out, there's a weird moment when your brain doesn't believe it's occurring. I had witnessed it in battle in bloody, sand-filled alleys, and I saw it once more across from a man with a knife and a conspiracy theory in his eyes. In a Dollar Tree storage room, the instinct took over. I turned things around. It's only dramatic enough to surprise him, nothing more. Give me a moment. My chair fell to the ground with a thud. Blade glittering in the flickering ceiling light, Jeremiah rushed. I swerved to the left, not neatly. His shoulder struck mine so forcefully that I staggered onto a shelf, filled with rubber mice and plastic pumpkins. Somewhere behind us, the collision reverberated. A broom dropped. Jeremiah whirled and growled. You're not Silas. Weeks ago, they took your place. Once more, he swung. Desperate and wild, I clasped my hand around a hard object. A candy jar made of glass. Inexpensive items. Nobody buys peanut butter chews. I swung it as hard as I could. Against his temple, it broke. He fell, not entirely. It's not like the movies. Howling, he clutched his head and staggered back. I sprinted and pushed open the rear door. The dumpsters were at its end. It was almost torn off its hinges by the wind. I was hit like nails by the rain. I didn't pause to see if he was following. Didn't turn around. I simply ran. I returned the following morning. The scent of damp decay persisted despite the rain having stopped. There, Rick was cleaning the front counter. As if I had just come in for a Coke, he looked up. He said, You made a mess last night. I told him everything. The blood, the shattered glass, the box cutter, and the attack. He let out a sigh. By the seasonal aisle, I lit a cigarette. You call the cops? I blinked. No, I thought you'd want to. Rick gave a headshake. More trouble than is necessary. We lost 3 shelves to fingerprint dust the last time someone contacted them. Simply tidy it up. I was numb as I stood there. When we returned to the stockroom, the blood was only a smear on the floor. With its plastic eyes open as if it had witnessed everything, one of the pumpkins had rolled into the corner. Instead of Jeremiah's handwriting, I discovered a folded note slipped into his file when I was mopping. "They're observing you as well." My hands were shaking. Perhaps it was simply paranoia. Perhaps it wasn't. Jeremiah never returned. I'm not sure if he's waiting for me in this decaying village, dead or hiding. After that, I lost my last customer. The word must have spread. In 5 days, the rent is due. I have half a can of baked beans in the cupboard, 3 medicines remaining, and $2 in my wallet. I now keep a knife beneath my pillow while I sleep. Occasionally, when the lights are off, I hear whispers and scratching sounds behind the walls. I sometimes believe he was correct. Occasionally, I believe no one noticed that the world had gone sideways. I'm still allowed to sit at Dollar Tree, in the rear during stormy weather. I no longer charge. Simply sit, reflect, and observe. I occasionally notice someone pause in front of the door of the stockroom. Simply listen while standing there as if they're attempting to listen to what's within. I also question whether I'm still the doctor, or whether I'm just the next person they're observing. The doctor, or whether I'm just the next person they're observing.